Thank you. What I'd like to do for you today is introduce you to the world of the bass. And what better way to do it is by playing some of my favorite compositions. The entire piece of Eusebius Revisited was written by a man named Paul Ramsier, who lives in New York City, and he's also a psychiatrist. He follows the same path as my wife, who has her doctorate in psychiatry also. And this piece was written for Gary Carr, who I've studied with 3 summers. And he's a fantastic bass player, and he can do some amazing things on the bass, which a lot of people cannot always do. So you'll see me do some pieces, some of the things by Paul Ramsier, and I'll be doing some very strange things a little later on in the program that he's written. I'd like to continue with the other 2 movements that I've selected from the Eusebius Revisited. Thank you very much. When you turn on the radio these days, you usually don't hear too many bass solos, string bass solos, anyway. So what a lot of people are doing these days are writing original bass pieces or taking a lot of compositions written for other instruments and rewriting them for the bass. And most of the pieces in this program are written for bass because I'm doing a lot more modern music. But modern music can also mean very pretty and very tonal music and very lovely music. And the next piece, which has 3 parts to it, lament, dance, and the reprise of the lament, was written by Murray Doc Solomon. Doc Solomon was a teacher who's now currently retired, and he was a musician, composer, playing in Broadway musicals and many orchestras, very active musician, and he's also here tonight. I will introduce him very soon. you very much. I'd like you to meet Doc Solomon.
Thank you.
My next piece was written for a man named John Deek, who is also a composer. But John Deek is also bass player in the New York Philharmonic, and he premieres and writes a lot of very modern and very different type of solos for the bass fiddle. And this is supposed to be the type of piece that you fail in. Underneath the name, it says, a very difficult piece for solo string bass. In failing, I am required to read a long text while playing music written above the text. The text must be read out loud at a more or less normal pace, and I must not allow the music to slow me down. The task is fairly easy for a while, because there is not much music, and because most of it comes at the end of clauses and sentences. It's almost like normal punctuation. Later on, there is more music, and the task becomes more difficult. So difficult, in fact, that I will probably not be able to do it without either slowing down my reading speed or else making mistakes in the music. At least the composer feels confident that I will eventually begin to run into trouble, which is why he called the piece failing. So far, the task is still not that difficult. But the challenge is that as the piece becomes more difficult, I must continue reading the text at a normal pace and playing the music as well as possible, just as I did at the beginning. By now, I am already rather busy just playing the notes and reading the text, but the text says that I should also try to listen to what I am doing as much as possible and speak loud enough to keep a balance between the speaking and the playing. Ideally, both the speaking and the music should flow easily and naturally so that the audience can follow either element at any time. Sometimes, the music has very strong aggressive quality, and I have to speak quite loudly to be heard. At other times, the music is lyrical, almost sentimental, and I must speak more softly so that the speaking will not cover up the music. But I should make sure that the text is always easy to understand. If I allow my voice to fluctuate too much with the rises and falls of the music, the text may become difficult to understand, and that too be a form of failing, because the text makes it clear that the speaking should always be easy for the audience to understand, regardless of what happens musically. By now, this task is already rather challenging, but I have practiced the piece quite a bit, and that is a fact, as well as simply a line in the text. So unless I'm having a particularly bad day, I can still handle the music quite adequately without having to slow down my delivery of the text. I should be able to keep everything well in tune and play the dynamic markings accurately. If I'm concentrating well, I should even be able to maintain the balance between the speaking and the playing. And remember to make the text easy to understand, even though the mood of the music sometimes changes radically. But soon, the music becomes more difficult yet, and I probably will start failing in one way or another. I should point out, however, that I am not obliged to fail. After all, the audience cannot see the score I'm reading, and no one would be the wiser if I simply were to leave out whatever passages I'm unable to play. People might be very impressed by my playing. I think that I had succeeded in playing a piece which the composer thought could not be played successfully by any bass player. But of course, by leaving out the hardest parts like that, I'd be cheating, and the performance would really not be a success at all, since the piece is about failing. By now, failing is extremely difficult. That is, the piece called Failing is extremely difficult. There are a few relaxed moments now and then, but most of the time it's hard to play a tricky dramatic melody at fast speed. But now I am probably beginning to fail in one different color because I don't particularly enjoy failing, so I think it'd be better if I cheat a little. So that I would not fail too badly, and so that people would be more impressed by my playing ability. But if I tried to fail and fail, that would be a kind of success and not a failure at all. So I must try to succeed. That way, when I fail to succeed, I will succeed in communicating the essence of the piece, even though I will fail to accomplish the task as it's set up. In other words, I will not be able to fail unless I am trying to succeed, and I won't be able to succeed in interpreting the piece sensitively unless my performance turns out to be a failure. But I should not be failing quite as often as it was before, because the music is returning to some of the more lyrical material. Even that material is difficult to play as expressively as I would like under these circumstances, but at least there is not much danger that I will miss notes, and if I concentrate, I can also maintain the balance between the speaking and the playing. Soon, however, I will be faced with a fresh difficulty. The text is about to run out, but the music continues for another minute or so. during that time, I must decide for myself what to talk about as I play. My remarks are to be genuinely improvised and should include some specific references to this particular performance and to the degree to which I have been failing or failing to fail or failing to succeed to fail or whatever. As before, I must continue to speak at a normal pace, in a normal tone of voice, and maintain a balance between the speaking and the playing. As an additional challenge, I'm supposed to link the written part of the text with the improvised part so smoothly that no one will be able to tell exactly where the improvised speaking began. Regardless of whether you feel I've failed or haven't failed, the composer of this tune has actually gotten you to listen to an extremely modern piece of music that many of you otherwise would not have listened to. Except for maybe the one person in the back who fell asleep, but other than that, I can tell you're all having a really good time because I've heard everybody laughing, and I guess that means that I have definitely succeeded. Thank you. Thank you very much. Lost a few pounds, but other than that, I've definitely succeeded. The next 5 numbers that I've picked for you have been kind of building up on my shelf for quite some time, and I suddenly realized, hey, all these pieces that I have are all written in 3/4 time. They have something in common. I could do them all together. And it kind of makes for a nice little concerto-type amusing thing for you. They're all very different, even though they are written in 3/4 time. It's also a good music education lesson. There will be a test, so please pay attention. 2 years ago, I met several people, including Doc Solomon, at the bass convention, which was held in New York City. And there were people from all over the world there, players and composers. And one man who I met, Teppo Hataawa from Finland, took a liking to me. He also lived across from me in the dorm, and every morning he'd be slipping music under the door for me. I said, try this, try this, try this. And because of that, I have an extensive collection of Finnish music that has been transcribed for the bass. I'm one of the few people that I know of in the United States playing this music now. And it's all handwritten, and it's fun to play, and it's really beautiful. Gene Sibelius was a national hero in Finland. And actually, while he was still alive, he had stamps with his pictures made. There are statues of him all over. He is known as the symbol of Finland. And I'd like to play you the Sibelius Waltz now. Debussy piece is interesting because it's one of my favorite compositions, because it's just so pretty. But yet, in 1882, in Paris, from the Paris Conservatory, Debussy was kicked out of his music class, if I get this right, for his terrifying progressions and the awful sounds that he played on the piano. He was quoted as, his playing was quoted as, quote, bizarre playing. And it's quite interesting how many, many years later, all of his music is so accepted and is considered so beautiful.